Welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast, where today's thought leaders discuss how they're using the latest social media strategies and technologies in marketing, sales, customer service, and HR. Get ready to be inspired as our guests contribute to your digital transformation through their stories, knowledge, and insights into what works in today's digitally connected world. And now, here's Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey there, welcome to episode 130. I'm Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm going to solo on this episode to devote some time to a strategic topic. In fact, this topic is the reason that I named this podcast show Social Business Engine. I'm going to present my case for why we need to stop talking about social media and instead focus on social business. But first, I want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Trax. In Social Business Journal, Volume 8, Trax explains the 5 biggest mistakes in social media monitoring and how to overcome them. Download this journal at socialbusinessengine.com/Trax, Trax, or get the link in the show notes for this episode. So now let's get to my little rant here on forget about social media. Let's think about social business. So first, let me give you the background for this. If you think about the evolution of how we engage digitally and how we communicate in business, it really goes back about 100 years, starting with the telephone. Now, the telephone wasn't digital, and I get that, but it was the first revolutionary breakthrough in how we communicate in business. But imagine how many executives resisted giving employees a telephone because they couldn't control the conversation. They couldn't control the actual engagement that was going to happen between people using the telephone. I know that sounds silly in today's day and age, but that actually happened many, many years ago. Well, if you fast forward to about 30 years ago when email first came along, that was really the second big evolutionary or revolutionary communication tool that's become available to us. And of course, that was definitely the early days of the digital age. So when email came along about 30 years ago, same thing happened. A lot of executives were resistant and slow to adopt email and give it to employees for the same reason. They were really reluctant to put that control into the hands of employees. They were reluctant to give up that control for fear of what employees can say and do with email. Well, fast forward to about roughly a dozen years ago or so, and now we've got social media. Now, there are some differences in social media. For one thing, it's because of mobile in more recent years, it's really in everybody's palm, and it is both consumer and in business. But the same is true of telephone and email, isn't it? But the same exact hesitation, reluctance, and fear has gripped many, many businesses, many executives across all industries, and that is the fear of putting social media into the hands of employees. So this concept of becoming a social business really is centered around a maturation process where they just need to become mature in how they use social technology. I call this the journey, the social business journey, and I liken this to the journey that we go through as human beings. We're born as cute, cuddly little infants, and then as we grow and we mature in life, we simply become more mature through age, through education, through a maturation process. Well, the same happens in business, and while it doesn't take decades for a business, on average, what I have seen, on average, is that a business goes through a social business maturation process over about a 3-year period. What happens is they go from looking at the way they use social media and how they measure their use of social media with a focus on vanity metrics like fans and followers and likes and retweets and shout outs and things like that. So they really transition away from that. I'm not saying they don't look at that at all, but that's not their focus. They start to look at business outcomes, business strategies. So what does a business care about? Well, they care about getting customers, keeping customers, getting or recruiting employees, keeping employees, improving processes, feedback, customer service. These are all the things that businesses care about. And a social business really matures and gets to a point where they're looking at how they use social strategy, social technology, and social culture to impact the business. So let's actually look at why. Like, why become a social business? Well, first of all, because we live in this digital age and a connected age where we all connect with each other, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or Snapchat or, pick your social platform of choice. We are connecting with each other as people. So the brand has to humanize itself and allow its employees to also participate and foster this culture of communication, this culture of collaboration using social technologies. We have to deliver a better customer experience. We have to deliver better customer service, and social plays a role in that. We not only want to improve sales, we want to improve sales processes. And then, of course, all businesses need employees, so we need to attract employees and we need to retain employees. And social can play a part in that when harnessed properly, when businesses use social in their recruiting strategy. Now, there are some key, what I call pillars that have to be in place for an organization to really say, yeah, we're a social business. One of the first pillars, maybe the first pillar, is the executives really getting it. The executives really buying into being a social business. And that means that they don't just rubber stamp it, and they don't just look at social as something that the marketing department does. They look at it as strategic. As I mentioned a moment or two ago, they look at it as using social technology, culture, and strategy to impact business results. So they get it, they buy into it, and they empower the rest of the organization to deliver strategies, execute on strategies that delivers those business results. In a social business, all departments participate. Again, it's not just a marketing thing, so all departments, according to the strategy, so if it's recruiting talent, then the recruiting department is involved. If it's customer service, then the customer service people are involved. If it's sales using social selling strategies, then the sales department is involved. Now, marketing has kind of an overlay on most of those, and I'll get into that in just a few minutes. Now, another element of a social business, another pillar, is that in a social business, technology is not an option, it's embraced. Social technology is just a part of what makes it tick. I've already said a couple of times in here that you need to have a social strategy, you need to have social culture, but you also need to have social technology. You need monitoring, you need analytics, you need to be able to listen and understand what's happening in the marketplace so that you can pick up on signals and gain insights and competitive advantages and competitive threats so that you can make business decisions that actually impact the business. Now, another thing that a social business does is that they train employees. They don't view training as an expense. They view it as an investment to actually harness the opportunity for its employees. And along with training comes governance. Now, once upon a time, I used to not understand what governance meant. I actually thought it was kind of a negative thing. And then I had the good fortune of interviewing Ed Terpening from the Altimeter Group way back on episode 42 of the Social Business Engine podcast. I would encourage you to go back into the archives and check out episode 42, and he does a really brilliant job of explaining what governance is. And basically, long story short, governance gives employees clear understanding of what they can do and what they shouldn't do. And in the end, it gives employees confidence because now they know. It's not a guessing game. They don't have to be fearful of losing their job because they might tweet something wrong and get fired. Governance resolves that when it's done properly. So in a social business, training and governance is provided. Also in a social business, there's a solid content strategy. Another one of my episodes from the archives that you might want to go check out is episode 20, where I interviewed Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose from the Content Marketing Institute. And we talk about how in a social business, that organization delivers content that meets the needs of their customer throughout the entire life cycle of that customer. So social business always has a really solid content strategy. Now, another pillar is in a social business, it's got an organization-wide view of marketing. Now, I've been kind of, tap dancing around this, but what this refers to is really the concept of advocacy. And that is that you want your customers and your employees to be your biggest advocates. And when you're a social business and you've humanized the brand and you've got a great content strategy and you're delivering great customer service and you're using social strategy, technology, and culture, then all of that is working in your favor from a marketing standpoint, but it's not all coming just from the marketing department. It's organization-wide. So actually what I want to do here is I want to take a couple of minutes to give just a few examples of some social businesses in action to kind of touch on some of these pillars here. So this first example is American Family Insurance. They're out of Madison, Wisconsin. And their CEO, Jack Salzwedel, he's the chairman and CEO. He is the most active CEO on Twitter. Now, it's not to say that every CEO should be active on Twitter. That's not the point. The point is that he has embraced social media, and specifically for him, Twitter. He also has a podcast where he interviews people on his podcast. And so he's embraced the technology and also the culture, and the culture has permeated throughout the entire organization. So he's leading by example. So it's far easier for the rest of the organization to embrace the strategy because they see Jack Salzwedel, the CEO, leading by example. Another example is a brand that's been showcased many times in the area of social business, and that's Dell. Dell is a company that has 110,000 employees, and as I record this podcast in September 2016, they have just announced that they are closing on a merger or acquisition, depending on the vernacular, with EMC. So they're about to add another 40 or 50,000 employees, if you can believe that. And they have an employee advocacy program where they encourage employees through training and governance to use digital and social communications in their job, and they're measured on the impact that they have on the business within the context of their position using social and digital channels for communication and engagement. So it's ingrained into their business strategy. Another example of social business in action, which is also a brand that's been showcased a few times, although maybe not quite as much as someone like Dell, is Indium Corporation. So Indium is a manufacturer in upstate New York of industrial solder paste that is sold into the electronics manufacturing industry. So anything that has circuit boards on it has to get soldered on, and Indium makes the solder paste. So they tap into the expertise of their engineers to write blog content on technical topics and then share that blog content through social and digital channels. So again, the whole concept of the entire organization is embracing social, and they're not limiting marketing to just the marketing department. These engineers, many of whom are PhDs in different engineering disciplines, and they're writing blog content and sharing that blog content, participating in marketing strategy, which is, I think, a fabulous example. Actually, one of my favorite. And speaking of one of my favorites, here's another one of my favorites, and this is NASA. NASA is the only government agency that I have come across, a U.S. government agency, that behaves like a commercial brand, because they have embraced a transformative digital and social communication strategy where they've empowered employees to communicate and engage with basically you and I, any one of us who have an interest in the very many different NASA programs that they have. They engage with us through content and social communication and engagement. They even hold town hall kind of settings, invite the public, and then, of course, you're free to just take pictures and share all of that. So in these examples, what I'm really, really illustrating is this bridge or this transition from a social media marketing mindset, which is so common and so prevalent, to a social business mindset. So just to kind of recap some of the pillars that are involved in its social business mindset. Number one, the executives get it, they buy into it, they support it. and they put a plan behind it, and they empower people to go execute that plan. There's this feeling, there's this sentiment that marketing is not just one department. Social, the marketing elements of using social is embraced across the entire organization. And likewise, employees are embraced as brand ambassadors, and they're provided training and governance so that they know exactly what they can and can't do. There's also an investment in social technology, because social technology is not an option. It's something that is needed to do proper monitoring and listening and analysis and posting and publishing and then just gleaning all the insights for business decision making. In Social Business Journal Volume 8, published in cooperation with Trax, we look at the 5 biggest mistakes in social media monitoring. You'll discover how to avoid these mistakes so you can improve your social media monitoring by digging deeper into conversations, analysis, and trends so that you can realize the revenue-generating power of the social web. Additionally, you'll gain insights from over a dozen industry influencers who weigh in with their expert thoughts. Get your digital copy of Social Business Journal Volume 8 at socialbusinessengine.com/Trax, spelled Trax, or just follow the link in the show notes for this episode. So all of this really speaks to how there really is a transformation that's going on in the marketing organization. Since we've always viewed social media as a marketing function, what I want to do now is take the rest of our time together in this podcast episode to really look at this transformation that's going on in marketing, because I really do think that it is, it's a big deal. I mean, it's revolutionary. I think that a traditional marketing department is really set up to fail if you're set up the way a marketing department was set up as recently as 5 or as long as 10 years ago. There's just too many demands that are placed on the marketing organization right now. The demands from the C-suite alone to demonstrate a return on marketing spend or at an all-time high, and it's driven largely because there's so much proliferation of data. The data that's just available to us now as marketers is just amazing. So there's these demands to deliver data, deliver ROI. So what we really have discovered, from the previous discussion up until this point, is that marketing is not something that's just the responsibility of the traditional marketing department. Instead, it's become a cross-functional thing across the different functions of the organization. So as I was thinking this through, the way my brain works is I came up with a 3-layer framework for this new transformative, cross-functional, organization-wide, I know I'm putting a lot of descriptors to it, but this 3-layer framework to the new marketing paradigm, and I came up with a really sophisticated, high-tech image. Are you ready for it? Really high-tech. Okay, here we go. I call it the ice cream sandwich framework. All right, maybe not so high-tech. But think about an ice cream sandwich, right? It's got 3 layers. The 2 outer layers, and then the inner layer. Typically, in the inner layer, that's the thickest and juiciest and the biggest part of the ice cream sandwich, right? The outer layers just kind of hold the inner layer together. So let's look at each one of those. Let's unpack it, right? So one of the outer layers is storytelling. Now, I believe that storytelling in modern marketing has to have 3 characteristics in place to be effective. It has to be authentic, it has to be relevant, and it has to be actionable. So, for example, authentic storytelling. This brand, Avery Dennison, they are a manufacturer of industrial adhesives, 25,000 employees. They have a program, it's a couple, maybe 3 years old now, called Get Social, where what they do is they are mobilizing all of their 25,000 employees to tell stories that are authentic from their day-to-day work experiences. Relevant. 3M. We all know who 3M is. They're a big company, even though they're best known for that sticky notes product. They're much, much more than that. They're 89,000 employees, and their new brand, I don't know how new it is anymore, but their brand message is science applied to life. So their storytelling is telling stories that are relevant to that brand story, science applied to life. Now let's look at actionable. Cisco, and I'm talking about the technology company Cisco, not the food services company, they have a newsroom style approach to content where they produce tons and tons of content. A lot of it is video and visual in nature, and it's all actionable. It's all designed to create a desirable action from the viewer of that content. It's not necessarily all about buy now, but it's about, learn more and how can I, use that technology in my business. And so it's very, very actionable. So if you think about the storytelling from an authentic and from a relevant and an actionable standpoint, those are just 3 brand examples that come to mind. Now, the middle layer is all about the employees. And basically what I'm here to say is that the employees rule. I mean, employees are considered to be the most trusted source of information. Now, I'm not just making that up. Once a year, the Edelman organization publishes what they call the Edelman Trust Barometer. We'll link it up in the show notes. And the last, 2-3 years in a row, the Edelman Trust Barometer has showed that employees are the most trusted source of information, even more so than the CEO. So basically, that middle layer is all about harnessing the storytelling potential of the employees. Now, how do we do that? Well, let's look at the outer layer, and that's the layer of marketing. So now, I hope you're beginning to see where I'm going with this. The function of the marketing department now has evolved. So let's look at what that looks like. What is that? First and foremost, marketing has to harness the employees' storytelling potential. Employees didn't get hired to come in and do storytelling. They got hired to do a specific job, and the requisite skills that got them that job typically probably didn't include storytelling. So the role of marketing is to harness the storytelling opportunities within those employees. Now, there's 5 skills that I want to review that's needed in a marketing team in order to harness that storytelling potential. So let's look at all 5 of those skills. First one is what I call quant. And it's basically quantitative skills, technical, analytical skills. So you've got to start with all the basic fundamental marketing analysis, understanding who your customer is, what their pain points are, what the buyer's journey looks like, how customers are segmented, maybe if they're in different locations, what are the keywords that you need, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that you do, typical marketing analytics and research and that kind of thing. So that's been around, it hasn't changed. Likewise, another skill that's been around for a while is what I call Crayola, and this is creative. So this is essentially getting a story out of an employee's head and making it interesting and packaging it up into something visual that's pretty and looks good and it aligns with the brand guidelines and just all those creative skills. Now, the next skill in the marketing department is a little bit different, and that's the role of a networker. And that's because the marketing team now has to do some networking to find the employees or maybe the customer to find the stories from them. So there's some networking that's involved. Now, that can be digital. If you work for a large company with 20, 30,000 employees, you can't be out there networking all the time, but maybe you have an internal social network, and you can be networking that way to discover, where the story potential exists. Now, the next skill kind of goes hand in hand with that, and that's the role of being a detective. Because again, remember I said earlier, the employee didn't get hired to be a storyteller in most cases. They got hired to do a job. So the marketing team has to ask the right questions to get the story from the employee's head, from the employee's experiences. And then, of course, the last role, the last skill is that of being a journalist, where they have to actually create the story. So again, you ask the right questions, you get the story out of the employee, and then you actually create the story. And then it's amazing when you give that story back to the employee. A lot of times the employee says, "I said that? Oh, wow, I didn't realize I said that. But it's accurate. Yeah, I did say that. I just didn't remember saying it that well. You guys did a great job," that kind of thing, So that's the role of the marketing department, is to actually tell the story, create the story, get the stories out of the employees or customers and then go tell the story, create and package the stories. So I want to begin to wrap this. I want to leave you with an action plan, but I know I've thrown a lot at you, so I'm going to simplify the action plan into 3 steps. And look, the reality is it's more than 3, but in the context of just this podcast, maybe you're mobile, and so I want to give you 3 things to think about as it relates to this forget, social media and think social business. Number 1, become storytellers. Even if you've already begun that process in your brand, in your organization of being storytellers, go back and put it through this little lens of, are they authentic? Are they relevant? Are they actionable? And are you getting stories from employees? So that's number 1, become storytellers. The next one, I'm going to use a recent phenomenon. Now, it's recent in that it happened this year, 2016, and that's a lady by the name of Candace Payne, a woman in Texas. She became famous actually as the Chewbacca Mom, where she filmed herself, recorded herself in her car laughing, wildly as she was wearing a Star Wars Chewbacca mask. And then that video went wild and viral, and I think the last time I looked at the numbers, it had been viewed over 7 million times, which is pretty awesome. So the reason I bring it up in the context of 3 takeaways here is that you probably have some Chewbacca moms within your employee organization. Admittedly, it's not going to be 95% of your organization. It might be only 5%. It might be only 1% or 0.5%. But you can find them if you work at it. Find the ones that have that kind of passion for your brand, and they can create such amplification, such advocacy for your brand that it can have an amazing impact on your overall social and content and storytelling strategy. And then the third takeaway is, and I mentioned this earlier, is that social technology is not an option. Even if I have this saying, incremental progress is better than eventual perfection. So even if you take some baby steps on this whole transition of social media to social business, one of those steps should be an investment in technology. Now, the kind of technology kind of depends on your goals and where you are in the whole, maturation process. But if you're not harnessing some technology to streamline how you do social media, monitoring, posting, analytics, if you're not gaining insights that can give you and your executives business insights to make business decisions, then you're still just focused on social media marketing as a mindset, and you're not a social business. You're not thinking like a social business. So all that said, I just want to kind of wrap it up with the ice cream sandwich framework. I hope that visual is something that you can think about. Of course, we're going to have an image of that in the show notes page. And just think about this whole topic that I've covered here today. It's really summarized in the following. Social business is a mindset focused on business goals. The framework, this ice cream sandwich framework that I've shared with you, is all about cross-functional marketing, meaning it's across the entire organization. You need 5 skills, not just traditional marketing skills. You need quantitative skills, Crayola skills, networking skills, detective skills, and journalistic skills. You need to be a storyteller. You need to have stories, create stories that are authentic, relevant, actionable. You need to harness the storytelling potential of your employees as well as customers, because they all have the best stories. And then the last one is that marketing is not one department. Everything that I've talked about here today, this whole concept of forget social media and think social business, it's really all about this concept of marketing is not just one department. Well, hey, I hope that you enjoyed my little rant here on forget social media, think social business. I want to remind you before we sign off here that the sponsor for this episode is Trax, a leader in social business. Through a singular platform, Trax allows multiple users to extract vital social media intelligence to better understand customers, competitors, and influencers to make those insights actionable. Wow, I just kind of talked about that, didn't I? So, in Social Business Journal, Volume 8, titled The 5 Biggest Mistakes in Social Media Monitoring, you can learn how to avoid these mistakes and how to improve your social media monitoring. You can get your copy at socialbusinessengine.com/Trax, TRACX, or you can also find the link in the show notes page for this episode at our website at socialbusinessengine.com. Now, hey, don't press that little stop button yet. I've got one more quick invitation for you. I want to invite you, if you haven't already, to become a member of Social Business Engine community. Membership is free, and it provides premium access to content that we only make available to members because, hey, membership has its privileges. Our community is made up of thousands of business professionals who, just like you, want to learn more about social media strategy, social technology, and social culture to create better business results and also improve their careers. It's real easy to become a member. Just visit our website at socialbusinessengine.com and you can't miss it. Well, hey, that is going to do it for episode 130. I want to thank you for your time. This is Bernie Borges wishing you continued success on your social business journey.
Thank you for listening to the Social Business Engine podcast. Be sure to tune in again next week to reconnect with Bernie Borges for more insights, inspiration, and practical advice on social business. Visit socialbusinessengine.com to catch even more content on social strategy that will rock your business and your career.